This is the Story Archive. The Group Project. Projects always sound easier than they are. The teacher says, work together like that solves everything. But most of the time, it just means you end up caring too much or not enough. And sometimes it means you try to look smarter than you really are. Zach was 15, sophomore year. Old enough to want people to notice him. Young enough to think confidence meant never admitting you were confused. The assignment was simple. At least it sounded simple. History class, group presentation, pick a topic, research it, present it to the class. Easy, until he saw who was in his group. There were 4 of them. 2 guys he barely talked to, 1 girl he didn't know at all, and 1 girl he definitely knew. Sarah sat across the room, always answered questions, always seemed calm, the kind of person who never looked nervous. Zach had never talked to her before, but now they were in the same group, and suddenly the project felt more important than it should have. They met after school in the library, sat around one of the big tables, papers everywhere, laptops open. Nobody really knew where to start. The other 2 guys didn't seem interested. One of them said, "I'll just do whatever you guys want." The other nodded. "Same," said the other girl. So now it was just the 2 of them. Zach and Sarah, looking at each other, waiting for someone to take control. He didn't know the topic, didn't understand the assignment yet, didn't even read the instructions fully, but he didn't want to look lost, not in front of her. So he said the first thing that came to mind, "I can handle the presentation." The words came out too fast, too confident, too certain. Sarah looked surprised. "You sure?" she asked. He nodded immediately. "Yeah, I'm good at that stuff." He wasn't, not even a little. But now it was said. And once you say something like that, you can't take it back. The rest of the week, they worked on the project during class. Sarah did most of the research. The other members copied notes. Zach focused on the slides. Or at least he pretended to. Mostly, he tried to make everything look organized. Titles, bullet points, pictures, things that made it seem like he knew what he was doing. He told himself he would figure out the details later. He always figured things out later. Except this time. Later came faster than he expected. Presentation day. He walked into class with that nervous feeling in his stomach that he didn't want to admit was there. Everyone else looked normal, talking, laughing, complaining about homework. Like this was just another day. For him, it felt different. Like the room was watching already, even before they started. Their group went third. 2 groups went before them. Both did fine, not perfect, but fine. Now it was their turn. The teacher called their names. They stood up, walked to the front. He could feel his heart beating harder with every step. He opened the slides, turned to face the class, took a breath, and started talking. At first, it felt okay. He read the title, introduced the topic, said the first few lines exactly the way he practiced in his head. Then he got to the next slide, and something felt wrong. The words didn't match what he thought they meant. He kept going anyway, talking faster, trying to sound confident, trying to make it make sense. Halfway through the presentation, he realized the problem. Zach hadn't misunderstood one small part. He had misunderstood the whole project. The topic wasn't what he thought it was. The dates didn't match. The explanation didn't fit. He was talking, but the words didn't line up with the slides anymore. He glanced at her, just for a second. She was looking at the screen, then at him. Not angry, not laughing, just confused. That made it worse. He kept talking. Because stopping would be worse. Because admitting it would be worse. Because standing there in silence would feel worse than anything. So he finished, said the last sentence, clicked the final slide, and stood there waiting for the teacher to say something. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough. The teacher looked at the screen, then at him, then at the paper in her hand. She smiled politely. "Okay," she said. "I think we may have mixed up part of the assignment here." A few people laughed. Not loud, not mean, just surprised. He felt his face get hot instantly, his ears, his neck, that feeling you get when you know everyone heard it. They went back to their seats. He didn't say anything, didn't look at anyone, just sat down and stared at the desk. After a few seconds, Sarah leaned over slightly. "You didn't have to do the whole thing yourself," she said. Her voice wasn't angry, just honest. Zach nodded. "I know." Pause. Then she smiled a little. "It wasn't that bad." He laughed quietly. "Yeah, it was. Looking back, he doesn't remember the grade, doesn't remember the topic, doesn't remember the slides. He remembers the moment he realized he didn't know what he was talking about, and kept talking anyway, because sometimes trying to look confident makes things worse. And sometimes the smartest thing you can say is, 'I'm not sure.'"
The wedding table. Weddings are strange when you don't know anyone. Everyone else seems connected. Family, friends, old stories, inside jokes. And you're just there, trying to act like you belong. As Daniel almost didn't go. The invitation had come from a college friend he hadn't seen in years. They weren't close anymore. Not really. But close enough that saying no felt wrong. So he said yes, bought a shirt he didn't need, drove 3 hours, and told himself it would be fine. And the ceremony was easy. Sit down, stand up, smile when everyone else smiled, clap when everyone else clapped. He could do that. The problem started at the reception, because that's when you have to talk. When he found his name card, he realized he didn't recognize anyone at the table. 8 chairs, 7 strangers, 1 empty seat with his name on it. He sat down slowly, put his phone on the table, looked around. Everyone else already seemed comfortable, talking, laughing, like they had known each other for years. A woman across from him smiled. "I don't think we've met. I'm Maya." He nodded. "Daniel," she pointed to the man next to her. "This is Chris. We went to school with the bride." Chris waved slightly. "Hey." Daniel nodded again. Trying to look relaxed, trying to look like this happened all the time. It didn't. At first, the conversation was normal. Where are you from? How do you know them? How long was the drive? Safe questions, safe answers. The kind of talk that fills space without meaning much. Daniel felt himself relaxing. This wasn't so bad. Just people. Just talking. Nothing to worry about. Dinner was served, drinks came, music got louder. People started telling stories about the bride and groom. Funny ones, embarrassing ones. Everyone laughed, even the older man at the end of the table. Mr. Lawson, someone said his name was. He had that quiet smile like he had heard every story already. Daniel wanted to join in, not just sit there, not just nod. He wanted to be part of the table, part of the conversation. So when there was a pause, he spoke. You can always tell how long people have known each other by how embarrassing the stories get. A few people laughed. Good. That felt good. He kept going. When I get married, I'm not inviting anyone who knew me before 20. More laughter. Even better. Now he felt comfortable. Too comfortable. Chris raised his glass. To bad decisions before adulthood. Everyone laughed again. Daniel smiled and said the first thing that came to his mind. Yeah, that's why I don't trust anyone who says they were a good kid. He laughed a little, waiting for the table to laugh too. Most of them did, except one. Mr. Lawson. He didn't laugh. He just looked at Daniel, still smiling, but not the same smile as before. Maya leaned closer to Daniel slightly, quietly. He was the principal at their high school, she whispered. Daniel felt his stomach drop. Not a big reaction, not dramatic, just that quick feeling when your brain realizes you said the wrong thing, at the wrong time, to the wrong person. He nodded slowly, like that explained everything. Because it did. Of course the embarrassing stories, of course the jokes, of course the look on Mr. Lawson's face. Daniel picked up his glass, took a sip, trying to act normal, trying to pretend nothing had happened. Mr. Lawson leaned forward slightly, still calm, still polite. I hope they weren't all bad kids, he said. Not angry, not joking, just steady. Daniel shook his head quickly. No, I didn't mean it like that. Mr. Lawson smiled again. I know. But the conversation didn't feel the same after that. Not tense, not awkward enough to leave, just quieter, more careful, like everyone was choosing their words now. For the rest of dinner, Daniel talked less, listened more, nodded at the right times, laughed when everyone else laughed. But that easy feeling from before was gone, all because of one sentence, one joke, one moment where he wanted to sound funnier than he needed to. And later that night, when he was walking back to his car, he replayed it in his head. The joke, the look, the whisper from Maya, the realization. It wasn't a disaster. Nobody yelled, nobody got mad, nothing dramatic happened. But it stayed with him anyway, because moments like that always do. Sometimes the worst embarrassment isn't loud. It's quiet. It's realizing you tried too hard to fit in and said something you didn't need to say at all.
What would you have done? If you'd like to hear more documented accounts like this, you're welcome to subscribe. New stories are added each week.